I think we're all ready. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Riverside. Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. We invite you to join this morning with an open mind and an open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. We welcome all of you to our service, especially those of you who are searching for a spiritual home. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal values that encourage you to join us in feeding your spirit and living your faith. So welcome. Welcome into this space of love, support, justice, fellowship, and worship. Although our doors are open, the pandemic is not over. So while we are here, please keep your masks on and socially distance. We can speak in normal tones, but singing or chanting creates an increased risk of airborne exposure. So we ask you to refrain for the time being. We invite those of you in the sanctuary to sit back and enjoy listening to our hymns. For those of you at home, sing your hearts out. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. For our call to worship, you are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Guy, Mount, and Ruby Modesto. Guy Ormont Jr. was born in Akron, Ohio in 1938. He spent his life searching for better ways to be, more tenderhearted, kinder, less judgmental, more peaceful, and more loving. He began listening for the spirit world as a young man and finally found his way on October 5th, 2020. In 1979, he completed his master's degree in anthropology at the California State University, San Bernardino. As part of this, he documented the life and traditions of the Cahuilla tribe with Ruby Modesto, as found in their book, Not for Innocent Ears. Ruby Modesto lived with her husband, David, and their family at Martinez Indian Reservation near ancestral clan villages in Coachella Valley. Mrs. Modesto was a well-known and respected final depository of knowledge concerning the oral history, customs, spiritual beliefs, medicines, music, and language of the Cahuilla people, particularly the Dog Clan. She co-authored articles in the Journal of California Anthropology and taught Cahuilla language classes in the Martinez Tribal Hall. As a medicine woman, or Cahuilla pool, Ruby followed ancient shamanistic traditions passed down through family and clan. Today, our fellow member Alec Peck will be presenting the work of Guy Mount and Ruby Modesto. Not for Innocent Ears is a humanistic portrait of the spiritual beliefs, healing strategies, oral traditions, customs, and teachings of desert Cahuilla people, the aboriginal hunter-gatherers and gardeners of Coachella Valley. Although these natives and native Californians maintained their aboriginal lifestyle until the 19th century, very little is known about them. Not for Innocent Ears represents 3 years of research, utilizing modern ethnographic techniques, personal interviews with Southern California Indians, library research, tape recordings, photographs, and archaeological verification of data. Reliance on the memory culture of living Indian people is about the only means we have now to reconstruct the past and get at the heart of human history. The non-material aspects of culture regarding values, ways of using the mind, spiritual beliefs, feelings, and attitudes. The cultural anthropologist, ethnographer digs for ideas and values rather than bones and artifacts. Both are essential for a holistic anthropology of prehistory and native culture. This service is a collection of selected excerpts from Not for Innocent Ears, Spiritual Traditions of a Desert Cahuilla Medicine Woman, about Cahuilla spirituality. On October 8th, there was a CNN news release. On Friday, President Biden became the first US president to issue a proclamation commemorating Indigenous Peoples Day. He says, "Today, we acknowledge the painful history of wrongs and atrocities that many European explorers inflicted on tribal nations and indigenous communities. It is a measure of our greatness as a nation that we do not seek to bury these shameful episodes of our past, that we face them honestly, we bring them to the light, and we do all we can to address them." We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's reading of the chalice lighting is Remembering Our Unity by Katie Romano Griffin. May the flame of this chalice, the symbol of our faith, connect us to all who have come before us, all who are with us in body and spirit, and all who are yet to come into being. May it serve as a reminder of our unity and connection across all time and space. Our opening hymn this morning is Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. For those in the sanctuary, please sit back and enjoy the hymn, but please do not sing along.
Sage and thistle, grass and root, raging whirlwind, whispered breezes, violent gale, and gentle cloud. With a blade as sharp as morning east, we ask you be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts your warmth revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle, blood within us, blazing desert, will to grow. With the wand directing power south, we ask you be here now. Sister water ever flowing, ocean, river, pond, and rain, drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse us, we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all that courage will allow. With the cup, the holy chalice west, we ask you be here now. Be here now.
We have a tradition here at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or who are perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to speak up and speak in front of others, and so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about our church. We ask you to hold the mic close to your face and speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. I'm sorry, the mic at the pulpit. So do we have any volunteers? Thank you, Dinah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? My name is Dinah Rowe. My husband Bill and I have been members of this church since 2004. We were members at Long Beach Church, Unitarian Church, and when we moved to this area, we started coming to this church after someone told us there was a Unitarian Church here also. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's how it's done. If you are new here, a visitor or an old friend, please raise your hand and come up to the pulpit so that you can introduce yourselves. Please let us know who you are, where you are from, and how you found out about us. Sorry. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm David Strickler. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. My daughter is attending the University of Redlands, and she's sleeping in this morning. So I decided to come down here and get to an in-person church service. My congregation has not had in-person services for a year and a half, so it's really great to see some people.
Welcome. We're glad to see you. Good morning.
My name is Angel. I currently live in San Bernardino, and I've been meaning to come here ever since I moved a couple years ago. And I started at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasadena, and then I went to the one in Montclair a couple times. So I've been drawn to this church for quite a while.
Welcome. Thank you, Angel. If there is anyone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. For our new guests, our visitors book is in the parish hall, so please leave your name before you leave so that we can know you are here, and your contact information if you want to know more about our upcoming events. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. There are a few announcements we'd like to share today. During this service, we will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all this information, and it is also available on our website. Chat time provides an opportunity to talk among ourselves and discuss the service, leading on to other various topics. It's held on Zoom 20 minutes after the end of the service, typically around 11:30. To participate in person, join us back here in the sanctuary, but the location may change, depend on safety per pandemic regulations. In order to participate online, you need a separate Zoom link. So go to our website at uuchurchofriverside.org for the Zoom chat time link on the main page. Oktoberfest. Join us on Saturday, October 16th at 5 p.m. for our annual Oktoberfest dinner and silent auction. Tickets are available on the website or through Robert in the office. This is for advanced ticket sales only, as no tickets will be sold at the door. In order for our staff to plan properly, please RSVP for this event by October 13th. The admission is $20 per adult, $12 for ages 6 to 12, and free for those 5 and under. If you prefer to pay electronically, please use the QR code on the front of a flyer. I believe there are flyers out in the parish hall today. Otherwise, please see our church administrator, Robert Brown, or Kate Lewicki in the back for further details. Silent auction. A silent auction of new and gently used items or craft items donated by our neighbors and friends will be held. The auction will be concluded on November 7th at the congregational meeting. Please see Dinah Rowe for details. Our hymn now is Spirit of Life. If you are in the sanctuary, I invite you to sit back, close your eyes, and listen.
Of compassion.
This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is on the church website and also in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater Brothers grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. You get the full value and the church also receives a percentage. Amazon cards are also available. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity. And to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Should we do this first? Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so one more announcement before that. SOS, Sharing Our Spirit. SOS, or Sharing Our Spirit, is a program to help families in need during the holiday season. All of the income from this fundraiser goes into our designated SOS fund. These funds will only be spent on the community to purchase food boxes, holiday gifts, as well as our Thanksgiving and Christmas Day lunches. So please give generously this year. Both lunches are free to anyone who would like to attend. These funds do not go toward your pledge or any church expenses. Our goal this year is $2,000. This year's Sharing Our Spirit fundraising will begin on October 10th and end on November 28th, on the second and fourth Sundays in October and November. This will give us a little more time to shop for our Thanksgiving and Christmas food and gift baskets for the community and support our Christmas and Thanksgiving Day meals. Please contact our office or our treasurer, Dinah Rowe, for more information. Now will the ushers come forward to receive the collection. Our next hymn is From You I Receive. Please sit back quietly and enjoy.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Our meditation today is This Is Our Home, but Not Just Ours, by Laura Bogle. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these old mountains that hold us steady to our ground. these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place, the wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. The Cahuilla, the Serrano, the Cupeño, the settlers, the mountaineers, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the explorers, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. Now let us pause for a moment of silence. Now I would like to introduce Alec Peck and welcome him to the pulpit, speaking to us on Not for Innocent Ears, Spiritual Traditions of a Desert Cahuilla Medicine Woman. Alec?
Thank you, Grace. I found this while I was searching for information about Cahuilla spirituality, and I found this publication by Guy Mount from 1979, submitted for part of the requirements for his degree of Master of Arts in Curriculum Development and Native American Studies at the CSU San Bernardino. How lucky I was to find a true local expert. I had been wondering in my search why it was so difficult to find information about Indigenous spirituality, and Guy's introduction partially addresses that question. I'll introduce the passages that I'm reading, but my words will be brief. Guy wrote this as an anthropological student, but also as part of his own spiritual journey. And so I'll begin with some excerpts from Guy's introduction about Cahuilla, about the Cahuilla Indians, and about how he came to meet Ruby Modesto. It was Ruby's wish that a book be written about her people, a book which told the truth, and together we decided to create this manuscript, a blend of previous anthropological research combined with her knowledge, memories, and personal experience. It is hoped that Not for All Innocent Ears will be useful in Ruby's classes, serving Cahuilla school children as well as California public school programs. Human history has been incredibly distorted by narrow, nationalistic, racial, and cultural intentions. American history textbooks usually begin with the European exploration of North America. 40,000 years of American Indian history are simply omitted, despite the enormous volume of historical information accumulated by anthropologists and archaeologists. High school textbooks still refer to Indians as savages and heathens, obstacles to colonization and progress. The many contributions of American Indian people are hardly mentioned. There is much to learn not only about Indian people, but also from them. The phrase, "Not for Innocent Ears," was chosen as the title for our work because it represents the esoteric nature of stories on Cahuilla shamanism, certain spiritual beliefs and healing strategies that have been withheld from outsiders. Historically, full communication with non-Indians has proven risky and dangerous. Ruby says simply, the times were not right. People were not ready to hear. Early Spanish priests and later Protestant missionaries had condemned shamanism as witchcraft and devil worship. The American immigrants to California regarded the Digger Indians as simple-minded merely because they possessed a Paleolithic technology and lifestyle. Even science tends to put down native concepts and perceptions relating to spirits by explaining these primitive notions away as merely culturally determined hallucinations. Hollywood films have perhaps done the most damage by characterizing the medicine person as some sort of superstitious fake. However, the times have changed. Publication by some anthropologists and contemporary writers have demonstrated a new emerging respect for the thoughts and teachings of Indian people. This change in heart has made it possible for Ruby to communicate her spiritual traditions more freely. Mukat's People by Dr. Llewellyn Bean says about Cahuilla social organization and culture. Since man was an integral part of nature and the universe was an interacting system, an ecological ethic existed that assumed any interaction affected all other parts of that system. The ecological ethic of the Cahuilla provided basic values of reciprocity and sharing, which affected relationships within the family and clan and extended to rule for living harmoniously with the natural environment. This philosophy seems several rungs up the evolutionary ladder of wisdom when compared to the wanton explanation of the earth so characteristic of modern civilization with higher technology. Obviously, there is no correlation between the evolution of tools, knowledge, and the advancement of human wisdom. Fortunately, a few ready-to-hear Americans are continuously adopting native ecological considerations into their own way of life. Dr. Castaneda's book on the teachings of Don Juan, a Yaqui Indian medicine man, have done much discredit the narrow Christian view that shamanism was inherently evil. There were good pools and bad pools, Ruby says. Some were witches using their powers to harm others, but most were healers, visionary leaders, and keepers of clan traditions. The negative views of shamanism is rooted, I believe, in the contempt Christian authorities have shown for people who use visionary power plants for the access to the spiritual realm. Many European women were burned at the stake during the Inquisition for, quote, witchcraft, which often meant to confessing the use of datura plants for the use of personal power and healing. These witches were mostly house midwives and ceremonial practitioners of native pre-Christian religions. One more slide, actually. Sorry about that. Before they were placed on reservations at the end of the 19th century, the Desert Cahuilla Indians occupied the fertile Coachella Valley of Southern California. One of the many clans that migrated from the valley to the Santa Rosa Mountains was the Dog Clan, Ativalem. This was not the first time the Coachella Valley had been submerged by water, only the most recent, probably occurring in the 15th or 16th century. In between these floods, the Dog Clan established their village on the rich desert floor near the Martinez Reservation, where corn, beans, pumpkins, melons, squash, and tobacco were cultivated. Oral traditions maintain that a violent earthquake, quote, shook the boulders down off the mountains and the ocean surged in little by little to cover the family gardens and equally important growth of wild valley food plants, mesquite, straw bean, wild grass seed, and yucca. The Dog Clan moved their village up the barren alluvial fans of the Santa Rosa Mountains in and around the Martinez Canyon. This period of life in the mountains was known by the Dog Clan as the time of starvation, because the wild and cultivated plants, which provided a major portion of their food supply, were devastated by the flood. Coachella Valley was not a desert wilderness to the Cahuilla. Rather, it was a supermarket. All one had to know was what time the store opened and which aisle to go down. In fact, all the food was free. However, the Dog Clan adapted to the radical change in their environment from the horticulturally rich desert to a shoreline lifestyle by constructing circular rock fish traps just below the high water line, which caught fish automatically by tidal action. They also fabricated tool canoes and rafts from which the men netted, speared, and bow-shot fish, waterfowl, and ducks. Cahuilla men continued their ancient traditions of hunting mountain sheep, deer, and rabbits. Women and children gathered newly sprouted shoreline foods such as bulrush sprouts, cattail roots, and duck eggs. In the fall, whose families hiked up to elevations to gather acorns and pinon nuts, which were stored in outdoor granaries and provided year-round in the women's mortars and matats, which this figure shown here is some of the only aboriginal materials left from the culture of the Dog Clan and other neighboring groups. This granary, mortar, patate, I think, and pottery belong to the private collection of Ruby Modesto. The Dog Clan lived in the Martinez Canyon for many years, and the archaeological remains from this period, such as rock fish traps, pottery shards, and petroglyphs, are still visibly evident on the Santa Rosa foothills along the high water mark. Actually, can we go back 2 slides to the picture of Ruby? Thank you. I had to prepare these in a rush this morning. So now I'd like to tell you an excerpt. This is Guy's story about how he first met with Ruby. He's speaking in this excerpt first with Ruby's mother, Magdalena. "It's so good to see you again," Magdalena said, and her eyes began to fill with tears. I reached out and held her hand. "I had a stroke, you know. Everything went around and around, spinning, and I fell down. My son was gone, and I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. But you know, I wasn't scared, not scared. I just know that we're going to the place where dead people go. But I didn't die. My daughter came over that afternoon and found me. She picked me up and took me to the Loma Linda Hospital. The nurses there washed me." At this point, Magdalena covered her mouth shyly and giggled. I was amazed by the intimacy in her greeting and her words. This was the first time I had seen her in 8 years, yet she revealed her innermost feelings as though I were a friend who had never gone away. She stopped giggling long enough to say, "I wet myself," but they didn't care. I found myself unconsciously massaging Magdalena's hands. "Oh, that feels so good," she said. Her hands were twisted from arthritis and she could not move her fingers. I began humming a massage song. "Do you believe there is a creator?" Magdalena asked. "A spirit?" "Yes," I said. "Do you know it is for sure?" She quizzed me, squinting her eyes. "Well, I don't know anything for sure," I hedged, "but I think it's true." "I believe it's true," she said proudly. "And when I pray at night, I ask the Creator to help me and be with me. You know, He forgives everything." "I pray too," I admitted, almost apologetically, coming as I was from a university where the mention of a spirit can be taken with great offense. I ignored my academic heritage and continued the massage, which I learned from the midwives in Santa Cruz. "This feels so good," Magdalena repeated. She pulled one hand away and flexed the crippled fingers, releasing a great sigh of breath. "Ah, you know," she said, "nothing else felt real good what felt real good was the birth of my first son." Magdalena smiled at me expectantly. I wondered how she knew to talk about my ethnographic concern. "Isn't that what you wanted to hear?" I admitted that I wanted to learn more about Serrano and Cahuilla healing traditions, but I felt embarrassed asking about her personal life, especially since she was so sick. "Oh, I wouldn't mind talking about it," she said, easing my guilt. "I remember it so clear. It wasn't like being at a white man's hospital. All they do there is give you a pill and feed you breakfast. But when my son was born, down at the Martinez Reservation in Coachella Valley, my husband's grandparents made a special bush hut in a clean place out in the desert. They tied a rope to the center pole, and I held onto it and delivered my baby in a squatting position. Afterwards, grandmother dug a long pit in the sand, just the shape of my body, about 2 feet deep. It was just the right size for my body. They built a fire in the pit, and after the coals died down, they raked out the ashes and poured a clean layer of sand on the bottom. I laid down on the sand in my nightgown. The earth was warm. I could lean my head back comfortably. They covered me with blankets and put more sand on top to seal in the heat. The sand came up to my breasts, which were left uncovered so I could nurse the baby. It was so warm and felt just right. The heat and the earth are healing. Grandmother gave me a special herb tea drink, and I wasn't allowed to eat meat, fat, or any greens. Plain sawish, Indian flour bread was okay. My grandmother helped me out of the sandpit every morning, and she massaged my stomach just like you were massaging my hands, and she rubbed in the medicine tea, which I also drank at night. They washed my breasts with the medicine too, and this helped bring the milk down. My son was wrapped in blankets on a crib board, and he slept most of the time. When he woke up, I nursed him. Every day, my grandmother made a new fire in the sandpit and placed me back in the warm earth. At night, the old people would visit and sing songs. They took care of me like that for a whole week. We prayed together too. Did you like it, I asked. Yes, Magdalena smiled. I think that's why I lived so long, because they did that for my body. What plants did they use for your medicine? I'm not sure what you call it, she answered, but it has 3 leaves at the tip of each branch. It grows everywhere in the desert. You might talk to my niece about it, Ruby Modesto. She lives at Martinez Reservation. She knows all about plants and everything. You might ask her. I thanked Magdalena for sharing her experiences and finished the massage. That felt so good, she grinned, wiggling her fingers. Be sure and come back again and see me. I vowed to return, and we hugged and said goodbye. Meeting Ruby. The directions I received for finding Ruby Modesto were vague, and some preparations were necessary before I could follow them. I almost didn't look for Ruby because I was told she lived in the desert near Valerie Jean's data shop, and that I could and that I should drive there to that location, turn left, and maybe a man on horseback would tell me where to find Ruby. I sincerely thought driving south into the intense heat of Coachella Valley and looking for a man on horseback would be a wild goose chase, but my thoughts were a worthless barrier to discovery. And like Doug Boyd, I had to clear my mind through meditation and trust that I would be guided on a path that was mysterious in nature. So a few days later, I followed the directions to Ruby Modesto's house by driving 12 miles south in Indio to Valerie Jean's date shop, turning left and encountering a man on a horseback. He readily pointed out the Modesto driveway, and I found Ruby sitting with her husband David in the shade of their Romano. These words are now transcribed directly from Ruby and are in the first person in Ruby's voice. First, Ruby's childhood. I was born here at Martinez Reservation in 1913. I never spoke English or went to school until after I was 10 years old. I only spoke my father's language, the language of the desert Cahuilla people who lived in Coachella Valley. I learned everything from my father's family. My mother was a Serrano woman from Moronga Reservation, and she spoke that language. Our family was called the Dog Clan because the men were good hunters like dogs and always brought something home to eat. When I was a young girl, my grandfather Francisco was Nate of our clan. A Nate was chosen to be the chief by other clan members of the council. He had to be a wise and honest leader with a knowledge of clan history, customs, and ceremonial songs. Grandfather Francisco taught me how to pray to Unna'a, our creator. He told me to go alone into the mountains to find a quiet, beautiful place and pray. He said I should talk out everything, say whatever I felt or needed, and then listen for an answer. That's the secret, to listen. You have to say everything that's in your mind, cry until you are empty, and then listen. He will speak to you. My grandmother's Uncle Charlie was a pool, a shaman with healing and dreaming power. Uncle Charlie always said that a real pool is born, destined to be one. It is a calling. You are chosen by Umna'a, our creator. He makes you a pool in the womb. One of the things which distinguishes a pool is their ally, or dream helper. Pools obtain their helpers through dreaming. In the old days, young Indian boys and sometimes girls were initiated into the visionary powers with the datura plant, which we call kikisulam. But my helper came spontaneously when I was about 10 years old. I dreamed to the 13th level. The way you do that is by remembering to tell yourself to go to sleep after your first level of ordinary dreaming. You consciously tell yourself to lay down and go to sleep. Then you dream a second dream. This is the second level, and this is the prerequisite for real dreaming. Uncle Charlie calls this process setting up dreaming. You can tell yourself ahead of time where you want to go, what you want to see, or what you want to learn. On the third dream level, you learn and see unnatural things, not of this world. The hills and terrain are different. On both the second and third dream levels, you can talk to people and ask questions about what you want to know. During dreaming, the soul goes out of the body, so you have to be careful. When I was dreaming to the 13th level, the first time, I was young and I didn't know how to come back. Usually, I only dream to the second or third level. But that time, I kept having different dreams and falling asleep and going to another dream level. And that is where I met my helper, Sweet the eagle. But I was in some sort of coma, asleep for several days. My father tried to bring me back, but couldn't. He had to call my Uncle Charlie, who finally managed to bring my spirit back. This was one of his specialties, healing soul loss. When I woke up, they made me promise not to go dream like that again, not until I knew how to get back myself. The way you return is to tell yourself beforehand that you are going to come back. Like self-hypnosis, later in the dream you have to remember. Once, before I knew how to dream and think simultaneously, I was dreaming on the third level and wondered how I was going to return. Suddenly, a giant bird appeared, like a pelican. It came along and I grabbed its neck. We flew way up into the sky. I saw the earth burning below, and I came out of it into the second dream level. It's really hard to come out of those higher levels. I was born a dreamer. My mother used to take me to the Moravian church here in the reservation. I fell asleep, and my soul would fly right out of the building through a little hole in the ceiling. I was a Christian for a long time. My father said it was okay. He said that Unma'a could do anything, even send his son to a virgin woman. But now I know that you cannot be Christian and a pool too. You have to choose between them, because Christians teach that a pool gets powers from the devil, and I don't believe that way. Of course, power can be used for evil. A pool can kill or make people sick or manipulate them against their will. A pool can make you fall in love with the ugliest person. Every pool has to choose between good and evil. The power can be used either way. I myself would never take a path that would hurt someone else. It's my choice every day to use the power in a way that is helpful. And I say that the power of a pool, the dream helper, comes from Umna'a. This is our ancient religion, and much like the Old and New Testaments, which is a spiritual helper, angels were sent to guide powerful medicine men like Moses and Jesus. Everything comes from Umna'a. One day, I got in trouble with the whirlwind. My father had taught me that whirlwinds live in the ground. The way that you could tell the difference between an anthole and a whirlwind's home was that an anthole went down at an angle so that the ants could easily walk in and out with food, whereas the whirlwind's hole goes straight down. Well, this time I poked a stick into a whirlwind's home and she came out. Boy, was she mad. She was angry and spinning all around me, but I defied it. I dared it to get me. I shook my fist at it and finally it went away. Here's a song I wrote about it. Ya'e, ya'e, the wind. Ya'e, with clouds of fury it blows, silky, dry, alkali swirling about. Where are my senses? Where are my thoughts? Even my footsteps stumble and stop. Gaily in mischief, she tangles my hair, flowering desert sand all over my face. She tugs at my clothes, screaming in glee, when I stand helpless, gasping in dust. She sweeps down the valley with brown, billowing skirts, whirling and twirling and dancing about. Madly she capers, a witch that she is, while I watch fascinating with dust-filled eyes. Soon she is gone, leaving me spent. She came for a moment to tease me. I'm sure, but oh, what a playmate. I'm glad that she's gone. Another insect that occasionally talks to me is the gray fly. The first time one spoke to me when I was still a little girl. The gray fly has a pink butt, red eyes, and stripes around its body. The first time one spoke to me, it said, "I'm a virtuoso." I wonder what it meant. I was studying English at school at the time, so I looked in the dictionary, but I couldn't find the word. Finally, I told my mother about it, but she told me I was going crazy. However, she also told me that she once heard that Beethoven, or one of those other masters, had learned a song from a fly. So she said, maybe you're going to be a musician. You know, the gray fly was playing. He was walking around on the table with his little hands crossed, being foolish. There was another fly on the table too. It said, "What are you doing?" And the other fly answered, "I'm going to play a song. I'm a virtuoso." After telling my mother this, I worried about her remark that I was going crazy, and so I never told her much after that. In fact, this is the first time that I've ever talked about it. I figured that people will just think I'm crazy. But I heard that fly talk just as plain as people. And do you know what else? It was wearing a swallowtail coat. My folks said that I was a strange girl, and and this is why they gave me my Indian name, Naisha, which means woman of mystery. More recently, a gray fly spoke to me about a plant. David, my husband, and I were hiking in a canyon where the elephant trees grow. Elephant trees are very sacred to our people. We make hunting poisons from the arrow tips from the bark. It could also be powdered, mixed with tobacco, combined with a sticky ball of pine resin, and rolled into a bolus for eating. This medicine gave great perceptual visionary powers to certain pools, who kept it in the kalawat nene, which is the medicine pouch or tree mixture. The way it could be used was for teaching during the peon gambling game. Cheating during a peon gambling game. This was done on the sly, of course, because ordinary players didn't have that much power. But the medicine would talk to your soul. It would show you which hand was hiding the peon bones. You could hear its voice on which hand to guess. They say women peon players can prevent cheating by rubbing the bones between their legs. Ha! Anyway, as I said, Dave and I were walking in the canyon, and all of those elephant trees were growing. I sat beside the trail to rest. Suddenly, one of those gray flies came and sat on my arm. "So you came and found me," I said. He crawled around and then said plainly in my own language, "It's all right." I interpreted that to mean it's all right for me to be here with the elephant trees. So I said a prayer for the trees. I blew tobacco smoke on them before we left to thank them for their gifts to our people. You know, students from the university are always coming out here to ask questions about how we use plants. They want to know where they grow, how we pick them, and how they're prepared. They believe everything we tell them and write it down as scientific facts. But then we say the most important part, and they smile and turn away. The real truth is that plants have spirits too. In our religion, everything has a spirit. Even the rocks have spirits. As a child, I could see things in rocks. I could see human forms like animals like the lizard. Sometimes I showed these forms to other people. After a while, they could see them too. But people from the university don't believe these things. They themselves don't know how to see, and they have lost touch with their own religion and the spiritual forces of the earth. It's too bad, and I feel sorry for them. They are lost men, and their own spirits are starved. Cahuilla religion. As I became older, especially after I was 40, I could hear things. I usually hear things in my dreams. I have to have a ceremony called Feeding the House soon, because I had a dream that the doors of our ceremonial house were closed. Ancient people were inside. An old man was calling for the people to come and eat, but nobody came. My interpretation of this dream is that our people are departing from their customs, and that these ancient ones are standing around waiting for them to return. I want to feed them, feed the house, because the people are not fulfilling things. Our ancient religion, and still today, we have ceremonial houses where everyone comes to sing and pray. Unma means big or huge, like God. Kish Unma means big house or God's house. It is the name of our ceremonial house. It is used for many things, and each clan here in the Coachella Valley has their own big house. It was used to give thanks for when different foods were ripe and ready to pick. At other times, it was used for dances. The clan pools might dream of something bad, something coming to the people, and had to get together and dance to keep the evil away. The big house was also used to heal people at funerals when someone died. The clanmate lived in the big house and cared for it. He raised eagles there too. The eagle, Takish, is very sacred. The people thought that eagles were human. When I was young, my grandfather Francisco was Nate. I remember a special ceremony we had in the big house to honor a golden eagle that had been found dead near San Manuel. My mother's uncle found it and had shipped it to us on the train. My grandfather drove a buggy all the way to the depot and brought the eagle back. It was in a wooden crate when they opened it up in the big house, and it stank so bad. My grandmother Francisco talked to it. The people sang and cried for it all night long. They thanked Unma'a for it. My grandfather removed its feathers carefully. He made an ointment from the greasewood, a sacred plant, and anointed the eagle's body. Then he wrapped it in white linen. The people sang ceremonial songs for the dead, just like they would for a human. They made a tiny coffin, just the size of the eagle's body, and they buried it in the tribal ceremony. We still use the feathers. Today, we get together in the big house and sing songs for the dead whenever someone dies, and again 1 year on the day after their death. The song for the dead tells us stories of our creation. I don't know all the songs. Many are forgotten. Originally, the songs for the dead were men's songs, but there were different songs for dying women called moon songs, but we don't sing those anymore. They are not remembered. The songs for the dead used to take up to 4 nights to sing entirely through. The whole story is told by Patencio, a Palm Springs Cahuilla man. Now we only sing 1 night over the body. Songs for the dead. The people argued with their creator. They didn't trust him anymore. He had brought death into the world. And so the flicker said, let's witch him. Pium him. Witch him. But who would do it? Not me, everyone said. Then they said, let Frog do it. So Frog went into the ocean and waited there where the creator defecated every day, a place where 2 logs stuck out from the bank and floated on the water. Usually, when the creator straddled these logs and defecated, it was like a thunder booming. But this time, there was no sound. The frog had swallowed the dropping. The creator passed another one, and again, there was no sound. He defecated again, but the frog got that one too. The creator poked down between his legs with his cane, moving it back and forth 3 times, which is why the frog has 3 marks on its head. But the creator felt nothing. Afterwards, the creator sickened. He went home. Did you do this to me? He asked the house. Did you do this? He asked the walls and the floor. But there was no answer. It was beyond understanding. So the creator called 4 different kinds of snakes to doctor him. They crawled all over his body, but there was nothing they could do. He called to horsefly and wind to doctor him, but there's nothing that they could do. He called all the animals and people, and finally he called a crow. He told a crow to bend down and suck the poison out, but it was to no avail. It was hopeless. The creator's feet and arms were getting cold. His body was getting cold and numb. When the crow had failed, the creator knew they had all conspired against him to witch him. You did it, he said. You witched me. So the creator told the people to cremate his body, but to send Coyote away because he would eat the remains. The people sent Coyote to the east where the sun comes up to gather firewood. But when he went away, they burned the body. But Coyote saw and came running back. The people were all standing in a circle around the pyre, when suddenly Coyote jumped over Badger and grabbed the creator's heart. That was all that was left, and jumped over Badger again. He ran off with the heart still in his mouth. He carried it over the ridge of the mountain, still red where the blood dripped. The creator taught the people to sing the songs for the dead, and he saw his spirit leave his body. It went towards the east, and strange plants came up from the ashes. The people told Eagle to catch the creator's spirit and ask it what was growing from the ground. Eagle was a powerful shaman, and when he caught up with the spirit of the creator, he danced his songs. "Why are you following me?" the creator asked. "To learn about the plants growing where you were buried," Eagle replied. "That is tobacco, pivat, my breath. Use that in your ceremonial houses. Burn it in your pipes. Another plant is corn, tuma, my teeth. The stalks will have hair. Also black beans, teve. Pumpkins will grow, nashlum, my stomach, and from my nostrils, summer squash." The creator said that the plants would be good to eat, and Eagle returned and told the people of this blessing. I'll explain to you the meanings of these songs as best I can. First of all, it's just like the story of Jesus. People didn't trust him either, and yet they killed him. Yet in spite of their treachery, he blessed them. It is the same kind of understanding. People don't want to die, but without death, the earth would soon be overpopulated. We sing these songs over a dying person to guide the spirit to that place in the east. You see, the Creator blessed us with food of this world and a spirit for the next. We can live and die without fear because the Creator takes care of us. Frog sorcery, by the way, is the worst kind of witchcraft. You can take a person's excrement, a spit or piece of hair, and stuff it down a frog's throat. Then you sew up the frog's mouth so and then that person will die. There's nothing that can be done to stop it. Their guts will dry up and shrivel away. Excuse me, sorry, I've lost my place. Each of the animal and people at the cremation were the ancestors of the different Cahuilla clans. My clan ancestors, Ativalem, the dog, was at the cremation. Other animals, like Iswatlem, the mountain lion, and Tokut, the bobcat, were there. Univatem, the bear, and also Unal, the badger, were there. But these clans have died off. There was also a clan known as Washwum, meaning swept away. They were washed away by the floods that came after the Creator died. Many other clans have died off since then, mostly from disease, but also from outmarriage, losing their lineage. All of the clans can trace their lineage back to the cremation, and all of the animals symbolize clans that were called by the Creator to help him. Frog, though, was not a clan ancestor. He was an evil shaman. All of the clans had their ceremonial songs for the dead. The words were the same, but the tunes varied. Each clan has their special songs, like the Grasshopper clan, Witam, would add their part about the grasshopper who saw the Creator die. The song for the dead have words which guide the dying man's spirit to that place. The songs help him accept death without fear. The words we say, we should forget this life. It's all a dream. It's all in the mind. We should forget the dying person too. We can follow them on that trail soon enough. It was believed that a dead person's soul came back once a year on the day after their death. So the people made an image of the person who died out of the yucca stalk. They put their clothes on it and danced an image in sorrow. You are gone, they might say or think. This is just a representation of you. These are your clothes, but you are gone. Oh, oh. This was done for protection. The pools said that the spirits of the dead were pure, and they would not stay long around the odor of dancing or sweating people. Sometimes, though, a brave spirit would stay and take the soul of someone living, and that person would die. Can I get a slide? Spiritual politics. The old Indians used to say that thunderstorms divided the seasons. There was a major thunderstorm between winter and spring, and another between summer and fall. That must have been what happened last weekend. Summertime has always been hot, but my grandfather Francisco had real power to affect the weather. He used to call the wind when it was hot. He whistled 2 long notes, and it never failed. The wind came along. Oh, how wonderful, he'd say. A nice wind to cool your body. He had that power all right. Grandfather Francisco was clanmate and was the last to maintain a kiva, shown behind me. This sacred underground council chamber, this was a sacred underground council chamber. It was a circular pit dug in the ground about 5 feet deep and up to 30 feet in diameter. There was a ledge around the subterranean wall where the water jars and sacred bundles were placed. A domed thatched ceiling covered the kiva to protect it from the rain and maintain privacy. There was also a post in the middle to hold up the domed roof. Feathers were fastened to the post. This kiva was used by the Nate to meditate with as many as 25 other pools. They would come here from the other clans to consider some perplexing problems. Maybe they were thinking about killing a witch, someone who had been poisoning the clan, or maybe they were thinking of some danger that was coming towards the people. Whatever it was, the pools could let it all hang out in the kiva. The Council of Pools and the Nate were like a court hearing. They had to judge people who were disgraced to the tribe. A good Nate would advise pools not to kill, but some Nates were quick-tempered. They judged to kill. 100 years ago, during my grandfather's Petrucio's time, kivas were found in every clan village, but my grandfather's kiva was the last. There are none in use now. Instead, we have the white man's law. And maybe that's better, because a bad Nate would kill people too fast. When my grandfather Francesco became Nate, he changed things. He accepted the white man's law and quit using the kiva. He only used the big house for other ceremonies. Unfortunately, when he died, our sacred bundle and eager feathers were destroyed too. I was just a girl then. Another thing about using our kiva, it was guarded by a rattlesnake, a big rattlesnake. But somehow it knew the medicine men. If a stranger tried to enter the kiva, the snake would drive them away. But when the pools entered, the snake just slid into some underground corner of the kiva. It never bothered them. I'd now like to pause for a brief intermission and read to you a Cahuilla folktale, which was transcribed by Ruby. Lady Moon. A long time ago, Lady Moon lived on the earth. She was fat and plump and very beautiful. Her spirit really shined. All the children loved her because she told them stories and gave them good things to eat. One day, Coyote saw Lady Moon walking with her children. He wanted her right away. He was lusting for her. Saliva dripped from his lips. So he went to her and told her to come with him, but she declined his advances. Coyote told her, "If you don't come with me and marry me, I will kill the children." Poor Lady Moon, she didn't know what to do. She despised Coyote, but she couldn't endure the thought of harm coming to the children. So she walked off at night, far away from the village, and she kept going and going and going, up to the sky. The next morning, the children came out looking for Lady Moon. They wanted to be with her and listen to the fascinating stories she told, but they couldn't find her. They found her tracks leading out of the village and followed them into the desert. Finally, the tracks just disappeared. The children cried and cried. That night after supper, the children were surprised and delighted to see that Lady Moon had appeared over the horizon. She was smiling down on them, and she had watched over the little children ever since. Sometimes Coyote howls at her, still begging her to return and be his wife. The plants have spirits too. You can talk to plants. You really can. I don't mean that you walk up to a plant and say, "Hey, bush," but I mean be sincere, be humble. The plants are like friends. Some of them have powerful spirits. The Kikisulem plant is a powerful shaman, a chief pool. It is a water plant too. Our pools used to get together in the kiva during a time of drought and bring rain over the mountains by praying and singing ceremonially to the plant, to the spirit in the Kikisulem plant. Our pools could see the spirit, talk to it, and ask it for their needs to be met. The pools and the Nate drank from the Kikisulem together, and together they talked to the spirit in that plant. They said, "Going to the bottom of the ocean, meant going to the bottom of the root and communicating with the powerful pools that dwell at that level of the plant. Datura, our Kikisulem, is a main line to chief pools who live under the ocean, where shaman dance and talk to the Kikisulem plant spirit ceremonially, they can make the clouds come over the mountains from the ocean. Kikisulem is related to an ocean plant, Musawat. It is our sacred medicine bundles. We make our sacred medicine bundles from the grass stem of this plant. Sometimes, especially later on, after it becomes dangerous to walk to the ocean from here, because Spanish soldiers would make slaves out of our runners, medicine bundles were made out of tulle. The sacred bundle had bead money, wooden images, obsidian arrow points, and had many feathers. These were very sacred and powerful things. No one was allowed to touch them except for the Nate, my grandfather. Only he or the person next in line, being in charge of the big house, was allowed to touch it. There were golden eagle feathers, hawk and crow feathers, yellowhammer and hummingbird were in the bundle too. It was especially useful to pray for rain during a drought, and sometimes it brought out to help purify the big house. Usually, each clan had one pool, or if it was lucky, two pools. They would come over here for these ceremonies and get together with our Nate Francisco, who himself was a chief pool, and they would take out the Kikisule medicine together in the big house. Sometimes they had to interpret a powerful dream by taking the Kikisule together so that they could go into the dream and compare notes. For instance, my Uncle Charlie was a pool. He had several specialties. One of them was dream interpretation. One dream I remember we had to dance over concerning seeing Indians coming down the trail to a Y in the road. He didn't know what the Y meant, so the pools came together and went into the dream. They finally interpreted it to mean that the people were going to fall apart, and they held a ceremonial dinner to feed the house. All the people were invited, and they were told by the pools about the dream and the importance of unity. This isn't right, the pools had warned the people. You should go one way and not take different paths. And so the pools and the Nates settled this warning about strife between the clans. By interpreting the dream, they used the Kikisulem plant to help the people. My Uncle Charlie was initiated with the other spring crop of boys. He went up into the mountains, and the pools smoked on him. They stayed up until each boy learned his calling. Their dreams would tell them each what they were going to do in life. The pools taught the boys how to purify themselves of body and mind. They saw how to lift the boys to their feet onto the right path, and my Uncle Charlie's calling was dream interpretation. Another specialty was healing soul loss. He could see the spirit leave a man's body, follow it, and catch it in his hand. He healed people that way. Other specialties which came to him, the inmates included the power to heal by smoking or sucking, the power to learn and perform the eagle's dance, singing and learning the clan songs, hunting with the dream power and the dream helper, rainmaking, and weather prognosis and gambling power. All of these callings involve special visionary perceptions, either dreams or Kikisulem visions. A real pool could send their spirit somewhere in dreaming. This is a power you are born with. You don't get it from a plant, although the power of plants can open up to that skill, especially men. Women are more in touch with their spiritual powers, I think, because of the monthly menstrual period. Women's songs and plants. There used to be so many plants, songs, and ceremonies just for women. The woman's plant was atukal, the cresoti bush. Women used it for menstrual cramps after childbirth. The leaves were pruned into a sticky paste. The mother who had just delivered the baby or a young girl having her first period was placed in the heated sand pit. Atukal paste was spread over her stomach and she drank some of the tea. Rabbit skin woven into a fine blanket were spread on top. Her breasts, arms, and head were above the sand, and she stayed in the warm sand pit all night. Special women's songs were sung for the pubescent girl by older relatives. The cresoti tea removed blood clots. In the case of a new mother, Aktul helped bring out the afterbirth by aiding in contractions. Women also used the dilute tea for making kikisutem during delivery. It eased the pain and lifted the spirit. Menstruating women were not allowed in the house of the hunter. They had to stay away as a precaution. You don't want any odors of blood around the hunters or their equipment. The men smoked themselves all night before going hunting, just to make sure they had removed all human odors. But the women didn't feel that they were being imposed upon when they retired to the menstrual hut. They got to be by themselves for 3 or 4 days. It was a ceremonial occasion which enabled women to get in touch with her own spiritual power. It was a time to dream and have visions. And each month, the women went on their own vision in the pit. The men had visions too, place to dream and pray, way up in the mountains. And this is how the people learned. Dreams were the source of all wisdom. Portrait of a Pole. When my mother died, I came into my power. My husband David is my companion, but I am not bound to him. I'm alone. Since I went into shamanism, I depended on Umna'a for everything. I pray and give thanks, but we are put here to enjoy life. I bend myself to him and ask him to walk with me each day. Here is a song I wrote to Umna'a. We are blessed. Desert breeze stirred the lazy leaves of mesquite. Somewhere in the dense thickets, morning doves cooed their songs to another bright day. Butterflies flew about, savoring desert blossoms. Hummingbird hovered around me, voiced his greetings, and flew away. A covey of quail scurried under the green skirts of the mesquite, where they softly spoke to each other. High above, a desert eagle, whirling in circles, going higher and higher, taking my thoughts and dreams onto him, the creator of all. And I stand here and ponder, all I see, all I hear, all I feel belongs to Umna'a, our creator, and I am his creation. He gave me all this to enjoy. My eyes are filled with tears, my heart beats with joy. I am indeed rich, because Umna'a has given us all this, and we are blessed. When pools come into their power, usually in their 40s, perhaps when they are lying down dreaming, they have to get rid of themselves. They have to peel off their old habits in a way that you peel an orange. They have to quit looking back. They must go forward and be strong. The stream of life gets rough sometimes. You have to learn how to handle your canoes, keep out of the rocky places, the shallow water, fix up the torn spots. You hit the bottom if you aren't you'll hit the bottom if you aren't impeccable with power. You want friendship, love between souls, and companionship, not emotional torment. I'd now like to finish with one final Cahuillan folktale to share with you. This one is titled Bobcat and Coyote. There once lived a family of bobcats in a den way out on the side of a hill. Bobcat had 4 little kittens. They spent their time playing on the ground while their mother watched them. They had such beautiful spots on their fur. Pretty soon, their father came home from hunting. He had brought a rabbit with him. Mrs. Bobcat started cooking it, making rabbit soup with wild wheat, pachisol, Way down the trail, only Bony Coyote came walking. He smelled the air with his skinny nostrils. I smell something cooking from my big brother's house, he thought to himself. Maybe they'll give me something to eat. I haven't found anything today. Hello, Nepas, Coyote said. Nepas means older brother, a sign of respect. I'm so tired. I've been hunting all day and I can't catch anything. My babies are hungry too, he said. Oh my, do we have anything we can give my younger brother? Bobcat asked his wife. Yes, she said, I have 4 dried rabbits. Your wife can cook them. And here's some squash, beans, and bread, she said, adding them all to a basket. Oh, thank you, Coyote said. You can stay and eat with us before you go home too. Here, have some of this pachisol. So Coyote stayed and ate with them. They were sitting around the fire, resting after dinner, when Coyote said, Your babies are so pretty. How come they have spots on them? Bobcat stirred the fire slowly before answering. Oh, the other day I sang my shaman song and took an arrow to read from the fire here, and I burned those spots on them with the red hot tip. Aluwa, Coyote exclaimed in appreciation. And then he went home. Did you find anything to eat? Coyote's wife asked. Yes, he said. My big brother gave me this, and he passed over the basket of food. Have you eaten anything today? She said. No, Coyote lied. And I'm so tired. I've been hunting all day. What a greedy liar. He had really slept all morning and stuffed his stomach at Bobcat's house. So Coyote's wife cooked all that food, rabbit, squash, and beans, and Coyote ate again. Later, they were all sitting around the fire, full and happy, when Coyote said, Wife, our babies are so ugly. They don't have any spots on them. I'm going to make spots on them. And so he put an arrowweed in the fire. When the tip was hot burning ember, he burned dark spots onto his own 4 children. They started crying and crying. The next day, they had running sores all over their bodies. Flies were after them and worms were crawling in the sores. You had better ask your big brother what to do, his wife said. And you're supposed to be a medicine man, she added sarcastically. So Coyote went to find Bobcat. He told Bobcat how he had burned the babies to make spots, but it didn't work. I was just teasing you, Bobcat said. You shouldn't have tried to copy me. Nevertheless, Bobcat took his feathers over to Coyote's den and doctored the children. The sores healed up right away. Don't try that again, Bobcat warned as he left for home. About 2 months later, Coyote stopped back at Bobcat's house to see if he could beg for more food from his big brother. And oh my goodness, the Bobcat had 4 large winnowing baskets full of army worms roasted, and they had other food too, corn mush seasoned with pasal, tiny black seeds. Come on, sit with us, eat with us, Bobcat invited. Ee-yah, Coyote exclaimed. Where did you get these fat, beautiful army worms this late in summer? And the army worms only come out in the spring. Well, Bobcat said, the other day my wife were wishing for some army worms. So I got out my feathers and danced my songs. And then I had my wife hold a basket under my stomach while I cut myself open with a flint knife. She caught all these worms as they fell out of my guts. Oh, Coyote said, his eyes wide open. And then I waved my feathers over my stomach and rubbed it with my hands. I'm okay now, see? No marks. After visiting for a while and eating all that he could, Coyote started to leave. It was customary to give something for the guest to take home, so the Bobcats gave him a big basket of army worms. When he got home, Coyote's wife said, Ee-yah, where did you get that basket of worms? Coyote told him the story while she cooked dinner of army worms and beans, and Coyote ate another meal, the greedy thing. Oh, these army worms were so delicious. I wish we had more. Go ask your big brother if there are any left. I'd sure like to eat some more worms. No, Coyote said. I don't have to go back. I'll make more myself. Go get 3 winnowing baskets and bring my feathers and knife. Put them down here. You'll stand right in front of me and hold the baskets. When the army worms start pouring out, you'll take the baskets under my stomach and start gathering the worms. No, she said. You're going to do something wrong. Shut up, Coyote screamed. Don't do what I tell you. I'm going to do what my big brother has done. And he started singing his shaman song. Coyote's going to kill himself. Coyote's going to butcher himself. 1, 2, 3. Then he cut his stomach open and blood spurted. His children began running around in circles. They were starving. Are we going to eat him, Mama? Get out of here, she yelled. Coyote's guts were lying on the floor. Go call your Uncle Bobcat. So the children ran over to Bobcat's den and brought him back. What did you do to yourself? Bobcat asked when he arrived and saw the mess on the floor. My wife wanted to eat army worms, Coyote moaned. I did what you told me to do. You did to yourself. Oh my, Bobcat said. That is something I do. I didn't think that you would try it. Bobcat rubbed his hands over Coyote's wounds and sang his doctoring song, and that fixed him. Don't try to copy me anymore, Bobcat warned again. Coyote sat up. He was all right. 3 months later, Coyote went back over to Bobcat's den. Have some mesquite cakes, Bobcat offered. It was December, long after mesquite was harvest, yet Bobcat had several large cakes of mesquite. It's delicious, Coyote said. Here's a big piece to take home for your wife and children, offered Bobcat. Aloha, thank you, Coyote said. How did you get this? It's so fresh, and this is the winter. Oh, Bobcat said. The kids wanted something sweet, so I told my wife to crack open my forehead with her stone pestle. The powder just oozed out of my head. Yeah, Coyote said, and he took the mesquite cake home and gave it to his wife. Let's eat it now, she said, and they ate, and it seemed like it would never give out. But finally, it was all gone. Coyote's babies began to cry. They wanted more. It was so sweet. I guess I'll have to do what my big brother did, Coyote said. What are you going to do now? His wife screamed. You're always trying to copy him. You're always going to hurt yourself. Don't do anything. I know you're going to hurt yourself. You're just a woman, Coyote answered. You don't know anything. I'm the boss. All right, she said, but this time I'm not going to help you. Go get your pool, pestle, he ordered. What are you going to do with my pool? I told you to go get it, he yelled. So she got the pestle and laid it down by his feet. Here it is, my dear, she said sweetly. Now I'm going to lay here on the floor. You take that pool and hit me on the forehead with it, then catch the mesquite powder as it comes oozing out of my head. Be sure to hit my forehead, not the eyes. I don't want to hit you, she pleaded. Hit me, hit me. So she smashed his head like it was an acorn. Her pool was solid granite, about 2 feet long and 4 inches in diameter. Coyote's brains came splurting out, his legs raised up involuntarily, and he farted loudly. There's a note here, editorial note. When Indian children hear this story, they love to kick up their legs in the air, imitating the old coyote. And when the storyteller they make farting noises with their lips. And so that is a lovely little insight into some Cahuilla folktales. And with that, I leave you. I didn't write an outro, so I'm done now.
On that organic note, our closing hymn is "The Earth is Our Mother."
The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho.
The sky is our father, we must take care of him. The sky is our father, we must take care of him. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho.
The rivers are our sisters, we must take care of them. The rivers are our sisters, we must take care of them. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho.
The trees are our brothers, we must take care of them. The trees are our brothers, we must take care of them.
Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho.
The earth is our mother, she will take care of us. The earth is our mother, she will take care of us. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho. Hey, yana ho, yana, hey, yana ho.
Hey, yana ho, yana,
Our benediction today is teach us to remember our history. Spirit of life, God of many names, source of hope. We come together at the end of another week, some worn down by struggles of health, of home, or work. May we be a community that makes space for the sharing of joys and sorrows, angers and hopes, with grace and forbearance. In our nation's life, we pause this holiday weekend to remember the Native American lives lost from the European colonization on what is now our soil. Teach us to remember our history. Though we cannot make amends for what has come before, may we learn from those ways never to repeat them in our lives today. May we develop new ways of relating to neighbor and stranger without violence or coercion, deceit or greed. Help us to find a sense of humility where we have privilege and strength where we face oppression. In our struggles, may we learn compassion, and in our power, may we learn temperance. As a community of faith, may we be a safe harbor in a world that is often harsh toward difference. Challenge us to use our presence as a healing force for justice and equity, knowing that although we have come far in the civil rights struggles of our times, there are many people who are still left behind, and the work of building the beloved community is just as pressing as ever before. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Alec, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. We can have about a 10 to 5 minute Q&A with Alec following the service. You can comment on what you've learned from his service, some observations as well. And so Alec, you have to go.
Yeah, the mic is open if anyone wants to share comments, and if you do have a question, I'll try to say what I can.
Castaneda as well, I suspect, over time. You've read some Castaneda, I suspect, as well over time. It seems that her approach is a lot more wholesome as far as how things are done. There was a lot to cover there. What would, if you were to look at that in comparison to some of the other stuff that you've looked at, what would be some of the things that struck you?
So I have not read Dr. Castaneda's work. However, it is actually mentioned a couple times in this text, referencing Dr. Castaneda's books on Don Juan, which in fact, Guy Mount, who wrote this, he says that that book is in fact the reason why he and Ruby were able to get acquainted and why they were able to risk communication in that way. And so, and even though Dr. Castaneda's writing is, when Guy wrote this, he says that that writing is under some scrutiny from the academic community, but is being taken more seriously as a way of trying to learn anthropological information essentially by interviewing and talking to the living peoples from that tradition.
It did seem very unusual compared to some of the other stuff I've read. When you've got gods in, when you've got gods or fairly powerful spirits, in many of the stories, with a collection of gods, they're interacting with each other. They're doing stuff, and it tends to stay. But I've never thought, But the thing about the creator being actually taken out by his creations was surprising to me. What was your take on that?
Yes, it very much reminds me of, this is a bit of a random tangent now, but oh well. There's a concerto called the Harvest Concerto written by John Mackey, which is about, it's telling a musical story of this ritual of Dionysus, who is not only the god of wine and partying, but also the god of the harvest. And so when it comes time, the story goes that when it comes time to harvest your crops, Dionysus, since you got food, it's time to party, because food means great times for everybody. So Dionysus riles up everybody, big frenzy, because everyone's having a great time harvesting their food. But then they go a little bit too crazy and they eat Dionysus alive in the process as part of the celebration. Dionysus is dead for the winter, which is why plants don't grow for the winter, and Dionysus is then reborn in the springtime. And so it very much reminded me of these patterns of that. Was some part of what it means to be human is that we have inherited something from the creator directly. We don't, oh, Grace, please.
So I thought it was really interesting how your presentation tied in this culture with the surroundings that we see every day around us, the local surroundings. And next time I drive through the desert, I'm going to think about your talk.
The desert flora are so very different from what we find in the Midwest. And I feel very connected to the earth. And so the fact that even the soil is completely different. And I feel that very strongly in terms of how I feel about where I am. So I definitely feel that those desert plants, they stand out to me because I'm not used to seeing them. But I also learned that apparently UC Riverside here in town is giving lessons on the Cahuilla language. And so here in Riverside, that is being kept alive to some degree. Excuse me, what I mentioned earlier about Ruby's hopes that this can be used for educational purposes, that is still live to some degree at the UC Riverside. Great. I think that's all for today. Thank you for spending your time with us. Blessed be. Namaste.